once upon a time, twice upon a time, thrice upon a time. Well, you get the idea. Hi everyone, I'm Jacob, I'm the Cowhat Librarian, and I'm thrilled to talk to you about this book tonight. I stumbled onto a listing for this one while I was reading through a review source, probably School Library Journal, and I placed an order for my library, and I placed a hold in the system for one that was available in another library, and my kids and I loved it, full stop. It is Endlessly Ever After by Laurel, Snyder and illustrated by Dan Santat. Now, these two names might be familiar. Snyder wrote the Charlie and Mouse series, while Dan Santat has been everywhere. Santat collaborated with Min Lee on various things, including the absolutely wonderful Drawn Together. He illustrated Harold and Hog Pretend for Real, the very, very funny take on the Elephant and Piggy books that he worked in concert with Mo Willems on. The very, very funny No More Poems by Rhett Miller was also illustrated by Dan Santat, and the delightful Kel Gilligan's Daredevil Stunt Show, which I love reading with my daughters. So these two have a lot of firepower, and it all was used in this book. So the TLDR for this book is that it is a choose your own fractured fairy tale. The main character starts at home, and she has to head to her grandma's house, and she has to pick what coat she'd like to wear, either her red hooded cape or a fur coat that looks vaguely like a wolf. And her adventure takes off from there. And as with Choose Your Own Adventures and similar tales where the reader gets to choose how things progress, every page leads in a few different directions. The reader might get to choose whether the protagonist stops and picks some flowers or continues on to Grandma's house until they reach one of the different endings in the book. And it was wonderful. The different storylines are hilarious takes on the various fairy tales, where the main character Rosie might have an opportunity to kiss Sleeping Beauty and wake her up, or approach the house of the one surviving member of the Three Little Pigs while dressed as a wolf, or might run into a wicked witch, or rescue Hansel and Gretel. It's all great, great, great stuff. She goes on tons of adventures, and the story decisions matter. They actually matter. They lead all sorts of wonderful places, and the endings, some of them are just, they're a little bit dark and a little bit grim, and they're hilarious. It's great. Snyder's prose is fantastic. She doesn't miss a beat as she chimes off rhyming couplets going throughout all the storyline stuff. And Santat's art is just incredible and vivid and animated, and you can clearly tell what every character is thinking every moment of this book. Even the small, obviously the action sequences, you can tell what's going on, but even the small moments. The very first page, the mom's giving the daughter instruction, and Rosie's trying to figure out what coat should I wear. It's actually a big decision. It kicks off the whole story and sets you off on one major path or another. And it's all conveyed in this one illustration by Santat. It's great. And the two of them had some fun later in the book too. Snyder wrote a series of events here where if you pick the less adventurous option a few times in a row, you arrive at a boring ending where Rosie walks home and she sees other people on the road, recognizable from other fairy tales, and it sort of implies that she wonders what adventures they might have had. That you've chosen not to have other adventures this time out, but you know, other people are having adventures. You've chosen the boring path. To contrast against that, there's a series of events you take, a particular set of choices, where you run into adventure after adventure after adventure, and everything's wrapping up so neatly and all this great stuff has happened, and Rosie wanders off again to see what else is out there. And the ending there makes a big deal about that no matter what happens, you choose. It's a call to action. It's a celebration of life. It's the idea that you are the protagonist of your own story. It's not something that's passively happening to you. It was wonderful. My kids and I absolutely loved it. We had to read through multiple times on multiple bedtimes to get through most of the story elements. And even then, we went back and read every single page we hadn't hit while going through the story properly, because we enjoyed it so much. This is just, it's amazing. They struck gold. This is more than the sum of its parts. Snyder and Santat are talented individuals, and this surpassed their individual efforts. It is so great. If you absolutely have to try to find something else that's similar to this, not that these match up to it, but you could try something like Once Upon a Golden Apple. That might be a fun one because of the mixed up fairy tale elements and the interaction where the kids can tell you that no, that's not how the story goes. Something like, seriously, Cinderella is so annoying, told from the wicked stepmother's point of view, might be fun. Or perhaps something like The Hero's Guide to Saving Your Kingdom, the chapter book series where all the men known as Prince Charming were actually 4 separate princes who rescued 4 separate princesses and all had their own weird issues and have to collaborate to save the kingdom. It was a lot of fun, and it fits in this sort of mixed up, fractured fairy tale sort of theme. I can't recommend this enough, folks. But with that said, I do have to talk about a deal breaker. So here's the deal breaker. Snyder nailed so much of the writing in this book, so many of the rhymes, the pacing was perfect. And there's one page where either she or the editor didn't catch what she'd written down. And as far as I can tell, it wasn't intended for deliberate impact. There wasn't, in my opinion, anything in the story that was better served by having such a bad break in rhyme at that point. And here's what it is. On one of the endings, Snyder rhymed the phrases "inside her walls of stone" with "what you might have done." I am well aware that authors will sometimes try to squeeze a vowel here or there. I've read tons of books, both published and self-published, where the rhyming isn't quite what it could have been. Rhyming things like crisp and fist and similar things that aren't quite there. But stone and done, I have never heard someone pronounce it stun and done. I've never heard it pronounced stone and done. I don't know what happened here. I don't know if this is an ending they didn't make it to as often, or if the editor just sort of skimmed over, saw the word endings were the same and didn't read it out aloud. I'm not sure what happened here. And it's a real shame because everything else was so perfect that it really highlights how big of a thing this little mistake was. And on a lesser note, I should warn you that this book, like any other book where you get to pick your path through it, The first couple pages do get repetitive as you have multiple readings over time, but there's also one or two instances where a path returns you to somewhere you had been previously, including a couple where you start the day over. For individuals reading by themselves, particularly if they're doing the place your finger where you were and hold your spot while you see what happens trick, it might not be as big of a deal. For me, reading it to my two daughters as a bedtime story, where they were alternating, taking turns on who got to choose where we went next, it caused a bit of a problem. Because if my older daughter decided they'd wear the red coat and my younger daughter didn't want to go that story route today, if there was a chance to go back and start the day over again, my younger daughter would want to take that option, but then it would be my older daughter's turn again, and she would steadfastly insist that no, they had to take the red coat that day. So if you're reading this with multiple children and you're letting them take turns choosing, you might end up in a bit of a loop. Still, it was phenomenal. Go buy it, or go borrow it from your local library. You won't regret it. As long as you and the people you're reading it to have some general knowledge of fairy tales, there is a lot to enjoy here. Now, on that note, if you use your public library and you appreciate the services it offers, I encourage you to take just a minute of your time and let the powers that be know. We're at a time where some public libraries aren't finding enough sustainable funding to continue offering the programs and materials and services that you enjoy and rely on. And a couple of good words in the right ears could make a world of difference. And if you are a library staff member, don't forget, watching these videos counts as professional development time. Anyway, thanks for watching. By all means, please like, please subscribe, and please check back to see what else I have to talk about from the Cowhat Library. Thank you. Bye now.